Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Atlantic CIL podcast. I'm your host, Donald Campbell, and I am again here with somebody cool, and it's my friend Kevin Nunez, who I met actually a few weeks ago. And I really want to continue our series in talking about disability advocacy, and Kevin has a lot of experience doing that, so I want to let him talk about it. So if you're interested in getting involved, you could get involved in advocacy. So, Kevin, you started off. Thanks for being here. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, first of all, thank you for the invitation. Thank you for a chance to raise awareness on all sorts of disability issues. Thank you for this platform. Me, I'm a 37-year-old male living with cerebral palsy. I've been advocating for as long as I can remember. Officially, I guess it started way back in 2007 when I did partisan policy making in New Jersey way back when. That was like my formal introduction to advocacy in general. Other than that, I'm a published author, podcaster myself, and blogger.
That's awesome. We'll talk about that too. But like what made you get involved in advocacy? Was it just having a disability or was there like one event that got you interested?
I was one of those kids that I call limbo kids, where you're not disabled enough for
Oh, please.
the disability, but you're not normal enough. So I coined the term limbo kid, and you kind of learn to wade through the waters.
Yeah, that makes sense. So,
Yeah.
so tell us a little bit, how did you get into writing and stuff like that? How did that happen?
When you have a disability like mine, it's hard to find it's hard to find an outlet that you can use creatively, and writing became an outlet for me, so I can just be free. Because it's hard to be totally independent. When I'm sitting in front of the computer, it's just me and the.
Right. It's just so how do you do it? Do you type or do you use like the dragon
I
or
use both. I use both typing use and I also use voice dictation.
yeah, that's what I do too. I do too.
Yes,
I use the voice to speak and then I kind of edit it by typing because it
yes,
doesn't always pick up everything
yes.
you needed to say. So how did you, I know you're involved in the New Jersey Developmental Disabilities Council. How did you get involved in that?
My the council runs the New Jersey Partisan Policy Program. And ever since I graduated, the coordinator of the program was kind of chasing me down until one day I said, you know what, let's give this council thing a shot. And that became my springboard to other sorts of advocacy lanes. That became, thanks to the council, I was invited to the State of the Union. Thanks to the council, I was part of SABE, which is Self Advocacy Empowered. The council has taken me in so many directions, and it all started with one meeting.
Yeah, that's great. So how did you even get, so tell us about going to the State of the Union. How did that happen?
To be honest with you, I still don't necessarily know. My house was being renovated at the time. I've done some work with, well, he was a congressman at the time, Congressman Andy Kim, before he ran for Senate. I've done, some voting webinars, some general accessibility webinars with his staff. And, I just did it as, it's another advocacy meeting. We think, next thing you know, I get a call. Senator Kim wants to have you as his guest of honor, as as his guest of honor at the State of the Union. It was literally the most mind blowing experience of my life. Just to actually witness the process of American democracy. It was more than I could put into words.
Yeah, so what would you, I mean, I get a lot of questions from people with disabilities wanting to advocate and wanting to get involved. Well, what advice would you give them?
You gotta put yourself out there. I know we're shy, I know we're scared, especially in this climate of political unrest that we're in. But we have to learn the more people see us, the more opportunities we have. But we don't until we take that first step and actually show up, and then let after we show up, then we can show out. But you have to show up first and take that
Right,
first step.
exactly. I think that's a great point. A lot of these advocacy meetings are public meetings.
Yeah.
There's no reason why people can't go to the DDD meeting, council meeting, or the State Independent Living Council meeting that happens.
Mm,
And they're always looking for people. And you don't have to go to the meeting and right away start, advocating, but
exactly.
you can just go in the room and meet people and listen. But you're right. When you don't show up, it's hard to get involved.
Exactly.
You know, the more you,
Yeah, showing up is part of the hardest part of the battle.
yeah, showing up is the hardest part of the battle. But and I know it's hard because people with disabilities have transportation issues and all that stuff. How do you get around, Kevin? Do you drive or do you use act?
Well, for my advocacy stuff, the council sponsors a lot of my advocacy efforts. So I have an agency that has transportation, that has staffing, and whenever I have an advocacy function, the council has been my biggest supporter. Without the council, I could not do self advocacy going empowered, which is the leading national advocacy board. It's a board run strictly by and for individuals with disabilities, and they sponsor my travel, my caregivers, and all that stuff.
That's awesome. Are you the chair? I forget. Are you the chair of the council?
I was the vice chair until this last year. I'm still in charge of the grants committee, but I was the vice chair for a long time.
Right.
It was
Well,
time to pass the torch.
you can't hold on to power forever. Can't hold
Right.
on to power forever. And what advice would you give not only for advocacy, but you seem very much out in the community and pretty independent. You know, how did that happen? What services do you have that helps with that? Like what would like I talk to people that are sometimes nervous about doing stuff like that, like being out in the community. So tell me about that.
Depending on what your activity is, find caregivers or find support people that are interested in that same activity.
Right,
I have different caregivers for different things. I have one that does like regular home care and one that does my advocacy trips because she likes to travel, she likes to mingle, she likes to be social. I have other caregivers who are wonderful, but the idea of being in a room full of legislators freaks them out.
right.
So so remember, a caregiver is a person too. If you're comfortable, they're comfortable. So you know,
And how do you recruit caregivers? Is it through people
I
you
have that.
know?
Did I freeze?
Yeah, you froze for a minute. Yes. When I asked you how you sorry everybody,
I
Kevin.
think I froze. Am I back?
Yes, now you're back.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right.
When I asked you how you recruit caregivers, you froze.
I use an agency or various agencies because I don't have a big family. But do your research on your agencies. Find out what they're good. Find out what they offer.
And I like how you said like the caregiver's a person, so you have to meet them where they are too, you know. You have to, it's like a partnership. You have to find out what they're good at, what they like to do, you know. You can't just expect them to do everything that you want to do. So, you got to learn how to work with people. And that
Right.
brings me to my next question. What advice would you give to people about like being in rooms with decision makers and legislators? Like, how do you maneuver that? Because that's very intimidating for a lot of people.
Get to know your audience. Get to know what you're gonna say. Realize that they're people too. So if you get to know them on a personal level, it's much easier to work with them and build from that aspect of it. You catch more flies with honey than you do vinegar. Example, at the State of the Union, I had dinner with a gentleman. He was a senator of South Dakota, I believe.
Right.
Obviously a Republican, but the man had just fallen the week prior. He had fallen in his
Right.
house. So he had now had a new understanding of disability because for 2 or 3 weeks, for 2 or 3 days, he was, you know, kind of non-functional. So, so I was able to give him that different perspective.
Right. I love what you're saying there. Like
Yeah,
start with the relationship. And also
yeah,
I always say keep it simple. You don't have to tell your whole
exactly.
life story or start from day one of your life. Find some way,
Yeah,
tell them your disability, see if you can connect and tell them what you're concerned about. A lot of people think they have to, like, if they're interacting with a legislator, they have to give a 30-minute speech
yeah,
right off the bat. And you don't. You don't.
you know.
You just have to be like, this is what I'm concerned about. This is why, and this is my story. You know. So so that I think
Well,
that
since
go ahead.
hey, you're gonna be a legislator now soon,
No,
hopefully.
let's not talk. Let's not talk about that.
What
We'll 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 see what happens. But
what do you want to hear from students?
what do I want to hear from people? Well, I always, and this isn't about me or anything I'm doing, but I want to hear what legislators I interact with want to hear is you know, why your issue matters, and then really into personal stories. And like I said, like you were able to connect with this legislator, and that gives him a better perspective on what you're talking about than showing him an hour long PowerPoint presentation. So personal experience works, and when you're talking about going in these rooms, isn't that what people with disabilities bring? We have experiences that people don't have. Do you agree with that? That people with disabilities have experiences like people don't have that legislators need to
I'm
hear?
sorry, I was there for a second.
Yeah,
Absolutely. I think it's one of the reasons why disability is so important. Disability is not a punishment. It's a opportunity. It's a blessing that other people don't have.
right. It's a life experience, and it brings a lot of good to it too. And like I always say, Kevin, if people live long enough, they're gonna join our club anyway. So they should care. We're
I'm
trying to.
disabled now, but everyone else is temporarily able.
Yes, yes, yes. They're gonna need us eventually, or somebody they love is gonna need us eventually. So, they should get on board now. They should get on board with helping us now. So getting in the room is important. What about how you act when you're in a new room? Like when you go to a new meeting? Like if I was to go to the first DDD council meeting as just a public person interested, what should a person do? What should they expect?
Go up to them, say hello, introduce yourself, and get to know them. It's all about connections.
Right. I agree. That's part of networking. And don't put so much pressure on yourself. You don't have to go in there and save every person with a disability on day one. Just get to know people. And I know from being on councils that we're excited when new people are there, right? Because that's more people that help us get our message out.
I also think it's important to constantly have the flow of different ideas and the different motions, the different vantage points of not just disability but all kind of worldviews.
Right. I agree. Diversity is really important because it brings new ideas. It brings new opinions. And what would you give? We'll close on this too. What advice would you give about how do you work with people? Because I know in these councils you have to work with a lot of people. So how do you navigate that?
Realize that they're people too. They have strengths, they have weaknesses. So come at them where they're at. Meet them where they're at and then go from there.
That's a great piece of advice. All right, so I really appreciate you doing this, Kevin. We're linked. Give me the link to your blog and stuff, and we'll put it in the chat. But any other closing words? Thank you for doing this.
No problem. Thank you for the opportunity. Sorry for the background noise and it was a little weird. but life is life. Be yourself, be honest, and don't give up.
Yes, that's great closing words. So thank you, Kevin. And the background noise didn't bother me. It's the life of disability. There's always some like controlled chaos going on in different situations. But thank you so much for doing this, Kevin. And I'll see you soon. And thank you everybody for listening.